Good evening. A slight change to the planned top of this hour. I want to bring you this breaking news that's emerging in the Daily Telegraph. A secretive Whitehall spy unit has been used by the government to target social media posts criticising migrant hotels and two-tier policing. The Telegraph is revealing that officials working for Peter Kyle, who was the technology secretary, he's been in the news a bit this week, hasn't he, have flagged videos with, quotes, concerning narratives to social media giants, including TikTok, warning that they are exacerbating tensions on the streets. Apparently, this same unit, which has now been renamed, was being used during COVID to clamp down on people who might have been putting out so-called anti-vax or anti-lockdown messaging. This is a huge revelation here. It's a huge revelation. It's something that I think a head might roll over. You know, people cannot feel as though the government is hugely clamping down on what they say about the biggest issue facing Britain at the moment, illegal immigration and legal immigration. They cannot clamp down on that. And this revelation is going to be deeply, deeply uncomfortable for Labour and, frankly, play into the narrative that there is a Stasi out there that is stopping your tweets. And can I just say as well one thing on this? One thing that I've been doing recently on this show, of course, is revealing how easy it is for human traffickers to operate on social media. I just wonder whether or not Peter Khan might be best served trying to come up with a crack team to stop human traffickers operating freely about how and advertising how to break into Britain, as opposed to maybe someone called Sandra who lives in Stoke who's got a problem with the local migrant hotel and decided to make a TikTok video about it. But we've got more on that story later on. It's a huge story. We'll have more detail for it later on. Let's crack on as planned. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. I'll be honest with you, this is the one I care about. Labour bid to silence migrant hotel critics. I think it's hard to overstate how serious this story is. A secretive Whitehall spy unit has been used by the government to target social media posts criticising migrant hotels and two-tier policing. Emails recovered by a US congressional committee show civil servants have complained to tech firms about content monitoring asylum seekers, immigration and two-tier policing. The dossier has emerged as ministers battle claims that the UK is censoring social media with the Online Safety Act. And it turns out, shock horror, that they've basically been using a pseudo-Stasi in order to do that. And who's behind part of this, or at least involved? Well, you've got Peter Kyle. It's the same man who was out in force on the media earlier this week, alluding to the idea that people might be on the same side as paedophiles if they dared to criticise the Online Safety Act. And you just thought at the time, didn't you, he's got something to hide. One post flagged by this unit, this Stasi unit, with urgency, included a photograph of a rejected Freedom of Information request about the location of asylum hotels and a reference to asylum seekers as undocumented fighting-age males. Those comments, we're just going to stick with this for now, I'll do the rest of the papers later, this is huge. Those comments were flagged by this government unit to try to stop us talking about it. This is a problem.
The issue here is how much did the minister know? One of the problems I have with our whole political system is we seem to have a civil service that is decoupled from the minister involved. So my first question would be, did the minister know this was going on? If he did know it's going on, he must have been in favour of it because he should have stopped it or not. If he didn't stop it, then he has to go. And the only reason I believe the minister should go is to send the idea to ministers that you are in charge of these departments, not the civil service. And if something's happening that you don't want to happen, it must stop. And if it doesn't stop, then the minister must change. So who was responsible? We have a situation now where people do very outlandish things with government resources and face no sanction. That's got to stop.
Yeah, but I think there's a bigger problem than this. Oh, it was only this week that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, standing beside President Trump, boasting about freedom of speech in this country and how in favour of it he is. And ultimately, he is the captain of the ship. And this government is plainly not in favour of freedom of speech at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's things that have been flagged here, right? So, I mean, this is ridiculous. So one example of something that was flagged was apparently a video of a load of Pakistani men celebrating on a street. And maybe it was maybe it might have been Eid, or it might have been something to do with cricket, or whatever. Anyway, the caption on the video was, looks like Islamabad, but it's Manchester. OK? Well, people might think that's in bad taste. People might think it's not something you'd flag to a secret agency.
Well, I mean, I think we have to think about what happened in Southport and the misinformation that happened around Southport online. But it does seem to me that it's somewhat over the top, and you cannot silence free speech. There are hateful things out there on the internet, and indeed, as we've seen with the Charity Commission recently, being said in places of worship that strike me as much more damaging than that and much more worthy of censure. So, I mean, I'd be interested to know when this unit started. Does it predate the government? We don't know how long it's been going on for. It's been going on for years.
It does. It was named something else previously, but it was something that was used heavily during COVID, apparently, to clamp down on people who were spreading so-called disinformation about lockdowns.
There's two things to say. Firstly, the police... I sit on an assembly. We spend a lot of time speaking to police about two-tier policing. They absolutely hate the notion, and they push back really hard because, from their point of view, they are treating people without fair or favour, and they're doing the same to everyone. But unfortunately for the police, they're at the mercy of what's happening in other parts of the system, and it looks like they're doing it.
But this is the kind of thing. Like, it is, again, it's one of those things where conspiracy theories turn out to be true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where people say, you know, like, I feel like I'm being watched. I feel like I'm going to get a knock on the door from police if I just say what I feel about this migrant hotel down the road, or if I tweet something quite innocuous. You know, Paul at number 58 down the road, like, says what he really feels about the rate of demographic change in his area, but doesn't actually say a racist word. Still, bang, here you go. It turns out you are being monitored.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely fundamental, because democracy breaks down if you don't have freedom of speech and you become a dictatorship. And I take a completely different take from Southport. You know, Keir Starmer should be really concerned about this, because he was the one who said that people who were concerned about Pakistani rape gangs were being far right, and he's been proved.
I'm not sure he did actually say it.
Well, it was similar to that. It was and he's been proved to be absolutely wrong. And it turns out that this government is in absolute dictatorship.
But this predates this government. This is going back to the Tories.
But it's using it now. And this cry that the Tories did it, it's not a defence.
I'm not saying it's right that it exists. I'm saying that,
one of the things I want to say
is both around
is that this is another revelation in this is that the government has been leaning on social media companies to try to get content that they say can exacerbate tensions taken down. Well, that's interesting. I put out a tweet earlier on making the point that I don't think the government has been doing that much to put pressure on social media companies to take down human traffickers' accounts, of which there are dozens, and I use to go and try and find them. And then one of my followers has very kindly, in the time it's taken me to tweet that and then come back on air, found 10 human traffickers' accounts on TikTok and put them under my post. Why isn't the government focusing on that? Why are they focusing about me using a phrase like fighting age males?
Well, I mean, look, clearly there is racism online, and racist content, Islamophobic and anti-Semitic content should be called out. However, I rather agree with you, Patrick, that somebody reposting a rejected freedom of information request and using the phrase undocumented fighting age males doesn't seem to me a cause for the government, whereas actually the government would be better going after human traffickers.
More importantly, the government should be spending its time going after those trafficking gangs, because it was Keir Starmer who said smash the gangs. And I pointed out then, and I'll do it again, unless you have a relationship with the country of origin of this gang, you stand no chance of doing it. And at least these sites will help him find out where they actually are.
This is a very, very, very concerning story on the front of the Daily Telegraph. It should worry everyone. Seriously, I'm not saying this to try and be sensational. This is a very, very big story. You know, if it basically comes down to secretive government departments designed to not just monitor what you say online, but also take it off there, and it comes after the Online Safety Act that's just come out this week, which is pretty squiffy as well. I think that we are. And I hate to say it, I do really think we are living through some incredibly dangerous and very weird times. And there's going to have to be a huge pushback on this. There's going to have to be a huge pushback on this if we're going to get out of this, I think. But look, we're going to, in the next section, I'll give you the rest of the front pages.